Hello, everybody. We're going to wait just a minute or two to get started to see if anybody else signs on. I'll go ahead and put on the captions for anyone who needs them. I'm glad to see so many people here and interested. What I'm going to do is walk through a lot of the material that I was sent out in my email, and then open it up to questions from y'all. And we can go from there. And like I said, we'll wait another minute or two, but I'll go ahead and share screen in the meantime, so that we can all be on the same page. All right, and if you have questions at any time, you can feel free to ask them in the chat. I'm going to have it on my second screen next to me, so that I can see it simultaneously with what I'm completing with y'all. And I'm also recording this, so if you know of anyone who wants to do the class but was unable to attend this, once it's processed and I put it on YouTube, I'll be sending that out to everybody as well. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. And if anybody else joins in, they can kind of catch up with everything. So what I'm going to start with is the syllabus, which I realize I'm going to have to just back up for just 1 second, just because I think that that gives you the best overview of the course itself. This one is from last year, but the only thing that would change would be the dates for this coming spring. Actually, this is from 2 years ago. So the course for spring is scheduled Monday, Wednesday from 1 to 2:15. And I always purposely scheduled this class so that it doesn't overlap with anything that might be problematic. So there are no psych classes, at least, that it'll conflict with. And it's scheduled Monday, Wednesday, but we only meet on Monday so that you can use that Wednesday time either to do more homework, to go to your internship site, whatever you need to do. So what you do is you work at an agency 10 hours a week. And so over the course of the spring semester, what I want you to complete is 140 hours. You can get more than that, just don't get less, if that makes sense. And don't do a whole bunch more. We don't want you exploited and doing double, right? And so basically you're going to take what you've been learning in all your psych classes and apply it out in the real world. We do a lot of reflection on what y'all are experiencing. So every class period, everybody checks in about how things are going. They bring problems they're experiencing, and everyone kind of chimes in on the best ways to possibly address those issues. So it does say the prereqs are 101, 102, and 202. If you need to take 202 next semester and you're going to take it simultaneously, that's okay. I can sign off on that for you. And the biggest thing for this course is attendance, especially at your internship sites. We want to maintain good relationships with these folks. We want to, you want to practice being professional. So I've never had to do this, probably because I've had this in my syllabus. But you know, like if you just don't show up and don't notify anyone, you can fail the class. That being said, if you get sick or something, pretty easy to just give them a heads up. And a lot of your sites won't want you to come in. So for example, if you're working with the kiddos at Chesapeake Bay Academy, or especially with like folks who might be vulnerable in their immune system, like the folks at Our Lady of Perpetual Help, they're gonna love if you tell them you're not coming in because you're sick, right? Because they don't want things spread. So that's the biggest thing, is like, you're committing to this, you've got to show up, and you've got to show up consistently. In terms of other things that you do for this class, each week you write a little reflection on what has been going on at your internship site. My students tell me these make it a lot better at the end of the semester when you get ready for your presentation and your paper. In the second half of class, each intern leads what ends up being like a half hour-ish of discussion. You bring an article related to your site in some way, and then we all discuss it. And then that article can be one of the articles you use for your paper. A lot of people see this 10 to 15 pages and freak out, but usually at least half of this ends up being sort of condensing and reiterating your journals throughout the semester. So please don't freak out about the idea that this might be a 10-page paper. People actually find this much more efficient to write than a typical paper, because you're writing about yourself and your experiences. But it's a exercise in reflection, not only on what you did, but how that relates to the coursework you've done thus far, and how it relates to your future career goals. And honestly, sometimes it's, I don't want to do this for my career, and this helped me realize that, and that's okay, right? It's still valuable experience. You'll do a brief presentation related to that. The past few years, what we've done is done those via Zoom, so that your supervisors can come on to see your presentation, sign back off. And that's been really great to have them be able to see your presentations. You'll also get evaluated by your supervisor twice, midterm and final. You'll do sort of an informal self-eval at midterm, an actual self-eval at final, and then I evaluate you at the final time as well. You log your hours. Each hour is a point, and you get 10 points for just putting it in a format that makes sense to you, right? So that is something that's pretty easy to do. So each week, after we do our check-ins, we cover a topic that might be linked to something you all are encountering at your internship. So things like professionalism, HIPAA, FERPA, laws like that. We spend a lot of time talking about disorders that you're running into at your internship site. And that is entirely generated by the folks who are out there at your internship sites, that you say, this is what I'm seeing, let's review this. We do some stuff about reflections and self-care around midterm. Then there's the student-led discussions. And then, as I said, we have our class presentations, and we do those over Zoom, and we invite your supervisors. So that is the structure of the course itself. And you might be like, okay, it's a course, Dr. Myers. Why the heck are you emailing us before the schedule's even posted? Well, there's a couple different reasons. One is some of your sites will want you to do things before you start this course in late January. So for example, I haven't used them in several years, but people who have done CASA, which is being an advocate for a child going through the court system, they have a 50-hour training you have to do before you can start, right? So people typically did that beforehand. Other places will want you to get a TB test, provide your vaccine records, things along those lines. And by starting now and getting you talking to them now, that gives you plenty of time between, sort of October and the end of January to get that stuff done. Check it off so that at the beginning of January, you hit the ground running. Now, if you are doing any sort of training before spring semester starts, count that. Count that in your hours. Okay, they don't all have to take place during the spring semester if you're training beforehand. So I shared this when I send out my email, and I'm gonna make it just a little bigger for any eyes that are tired like mine. So these are sites that for sure have folks. So Chesapeake Bay Academy is right behind our softball field. You can walk there. And last year they had 3 of our interns, so they are pretty flexible. And they typically work with the school counselor. But now that we have a pretty active research program going over there, it's entirely possible that if you're interested in getting some research experience, you could work with our director on that. And I say "our" because I'm actually on the advisory board for this research initiative. Eggleston Services Brain Injury Service. So this is a sort of like clubhouse for folks who have brain injuries. And you work with the folks at the clubhouse, but then also with some case management as well. You know what, In-Faith Psychological Services, I am going to drop just because she's been having some health issues and I don't want that to mess up anybody's hours. It has in the past, unfortunately. But these other ones are all good to go for sure. So Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Virginia Beach is a assisted living and nursing home community. They have an entire unit dedicated to working with patients with dementia. So people have found that really interesting. Oftentimes you are sort of doing one-on-ones where you sit and chat with somebody, but we've also had students help with their art therapy program in the past. Rowles and Associates was a new site last year, and Hannah, who was there, had such a great experience. They really tailored it to what she's interested in. So this is a private practice. So Hannah was able to sit in on like assessments of incoming patients. And then it also has a patient first, like urgent care, but for mental health issues. And so I know Hannah did some work on that side as well. So this is a really cool site. I also have another site I need to circle back around to, and I will do that this next week, that does something very similar and is a newer organization. So I'm just going to make that a little note now. And I will update this document as we go. Tidewater Youth Services Commission is a great one that if you're interested in working with at-risk youth. When my interns have worked here previously, they've worked at the Virginia Beach location. And it helps kids who are sort of having run-ins with the law in one way or another. And actually one of our alums, Lola, works there now. Western Tidewater Community Services Board is out in Suffolk, so it is a hike. But the people who have been out here have really enjoyed their experience. So you work with the Pathways Day Support Program with clients typically with intellectual disabilities, but sometimes I've also had interns work with clients with like severe mental illness like schizophrenia. And so you get really varied experiences from this site. And then there are a couple sites I've used in the past, but no one's used the past couple of years, so I didn't check in with them. But if you're interested, it certainly could be something that I look into. So Samaritan House, which works with survivors of sexual assault, survivors of domestic violence. In the past, we have had folks at CHPD working on research. I mentioned CASA. Basically the child services in Hampton. So people have worked with prisoners, people have done supervised visits. And then if you're interested in hospice work, which is end of life work, Westminster Canterbury and Virginia Beach as well. I'm also realizing that I did not add on here a couple of places we had last year. So again, I'll update as I get information. So we have had folks placed over at EVMS in their art therapy program, working with the department there. And then We had our first intern who did like a sports psych internship last year. And so I need to reach back out to that organization and see if they're interested in supervising someone again. If there's something not on here that you're like, I really want to do X, let me know, because I am very flexible on this. I have some of these internship types because of that. So for example, Chesapeake Bay Academy, 5+ years ago, I had one student who was like, I want to do something with school psych. And I was like, okay, let's make this happen. And I had an adjunct whose office is in that building. And so we worked together to meet me with the head of school. And we've had an intern, at least one intern there every year since. And again, sometimes 2 or 3. So I'm always willing to collaborate. I'm always willing to come up with new ideas and help you connect with people. Or if you know somebody already and you've chatted with them, that's another option as well. Last thing that I did send out in the email, and I can reshare this in the chat here in a second, is the application. Let me grab the link for y'all. Make it a little easier to copy. So this is just on our end, basically, and I'm having this due Monday by midnight. So what this is basic info about you, when you're graduating, what psych courses you've taken and how well you've done in them, your GPA, and it shows you where to find it in WebAdvisor. And then lists 2 faculty members that are not me. I know what I think of the people I know, right? So we need 2 faculty members who are not me. It can also be staff members. So people have asked their coaches in the past, or like someone who's their supervisor for their work study. That's great too. But basically, they don't have to write a letter. I just shoot them an email and I say, are there any red flags I should know about? Very occasionally there'll be something that kind of makes me consider which site you're at. I've never had someone say, no, don't send this person out, right? But this is sort of my last check for myself to make sure I'm not sending someone who's like a psychopath out in the world. You know, hopefully I'd pick up with that on my clinical psychology, but psychopaths also know how to like put on a good face for the right people, right? So that is why I do this, just to like double check. And then list at least 3 sites you might be interested in. And again, if you have sort of come up with your own site, put that first. But sometimes what has happened is like everybody's interested in one site. And so then I'm like, go to people and I'm like, well, how would you feel about doing your second place site? Because no one's interested in that one. And then you get that one. And then you authorize me to just look up your GPA and make sure you didn't lie to me, basically. So pretty straightforward. I would say, besides looking up the stuff on WebAdvisor, this will take you maybe 5 to 10 minutes to complete. And then what will happen after I get the applications on Monday is that I will go through them. I'll start to do your reference checks. Once I have all those in, I'll start sort of assigning people to sites. It is not my final decision whether you get your internship or not. It is the supervisor at the site. So most of them will ask you to come interview with them, and then they make the final decision. If for some reason they say you're not a good match, then we find you another site and you interview there. But that again has very rarely happened. Typically, if I've screened you and you go to the site, it's a good fit. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing just so you can see me a little bit bigger, and ask if people have any questions. And you can either unmute or type them in the chat, whatever's easier for you. Let's see. For any training that may take place before the course, does that impact what places we can have internship at? I live out of state and would like to account that ahead of time. That's a good question. No, not really. If there is, you know, training you have to do, typically you can do it during the semester. So like during fall, for spring. So like if you're not going to be here for J term, that wouldn't necessarily get in the way. Yeah, and I think I've even had people like do their training while they're taking a J term class and make it work. A lot of these places, the training is going to be more like on site, on the job, and the stuff you'll have to do beforehand might be like an orientation or again, like getting certain medical things checked. So yeah, I do not think that that should negatively impact your ability to do an internship. The only one I can think of where it has the huge training beforehand is the CASA site. Other questions? Well, I think I looked yesterday and I think some of you have even filled out the application already, which is awesome. Like I said, starting Monday, I'll start looking at those. And people are usually pretty quick to get back to me with the reference checks. So hopefully by the end of next week, I'll be able to start assigning people to sites and connecting you with supervisors for interviews. So again, I know it's early, but that's really just to make sure if they want you to like, you need your updated vaccine records and you've got to like call your parents to find them, right? You have plenty of time to do that. When we haven't done that in the past, people have been scrambling because they might start 2 to 3 weeks late on the internship. And I just don't want to put you all in that position. Alrighty. I'll hang around. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll hang around for a second in case anyone has any like questions they don't want to ask in front of other people. If not, then I look forward to getting all your applications and I would love to have a big intern class this semester. So tell all your friends.